Order, if I can have our city clerk please call the roll.
Mayor Flores.
Present.
Deputy Mayor Noble.
Here.
Councilmember Tharp.
Present.
Councilmember Dugo. Councilmember Diaz and Busquet are absent tonight. Mayor, we have a quorum.
All right, we already did the Pledge of Allegiance, so we are now moving on to the agenda approval. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda?
All right, I have a motion made by Councilmember Tharp, second by Deputy Mayor Noble. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that motion carries 3-0. Like to open up comments from the public for agenda items only. If you have anything you want to comment, please come forward, state your name and address for the record. All right, seeing none, moving on to our regular agenda. Tonight we have the fiscal year 2024. Our first item is capital improvement projects review. We have new positions and city events, and they're all going to be covered by the city manager, Andrea McHugh.
Thank you, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, council members. Appreciate your time this evening. We are going to, like the mayor said, we are going to go through a preliminary review of capital projects, new positions, and we are going to also go over city events. As you know, in years past, when I've done this presentation, there are some items that we just gloss over pretty quickly because they are standard maintenance items. I will touch on and speak a little bit more on the things that are either new projects or there's more detail or more dollars associated with those. A couple of the things to just note, a couple things to just note as part of this presentation. We still don't have all the numbers. So the projects are in here, but you will not see in the summaries for some of the funds, you won't see impact fees for fiscal year 24. You won't see some of those things because we just don't have those numbers yet. So understanding that some of those things are going to change, but preliminarily this is where we are. We will do a quick run through in July at the next meeting to discuss the budget, but let's go ahead and get started if everybody's ready to go. Okay, so the first slide is property improvement program. We found that the property improvement program has been pretty successful for the city. We seem to be using all the allocation every year. Currently, we have in the budget $100,000 as we've had in previous years. This past fiscal year, this current fiscal year, we have $75,000 for residential, up to $25,000 for commercial. If we do not get enough commercial applications to satisfy the $25,000, those dollars can be used for residential. So currently, again, we have the $100,000 in there. I will keep moving unless anyone stops me, so yeah.
Not so much a stop, but a pause. I'd love to see some of the results. I think it's a great program. So
I think what we do as part of, before we go into the program, we bring back the resolution to move forward with it. So as part of that, we'll bring forward some before and after so you can see some of the things that have happened.
Thank you.
Next one is art in public places. This is new to the city, a couple years now. We do have $25,000 budgeted in our art and public places funds. We're hoping that as these new projects come on board, we will be able to have fees going into that fund so that we don't have to budget dollars. But for right now, we have $25,000 in there. We do not have any projects slated currently for the city for art and public places, but we want to be able to have that placeholder for them. Educational scholarships. Currently, we have the 6 budgeted educational scholarships, and we also have the 4 that are coming out of the textile funds. The textile funds is a pretty healthy fund, so anything related to education, youth programs, things like that, we're able to use those dollars for that. So we were comfortable with keeping in at the 10, the 6 budgeted, and then the 4 from textile. Okay, moving on to new growth, the 301 fund. The first one in the 301 fund is 301094. This is a project that we started last year. It probably feels like for our Director of Development and Neighborhood Services and some of the others that it has been going on for at least 5 years because there's a lot associated with it. It is a project that is hopefully going to be able to allow us to link our licensing, permitting, code enforcement functions within our building department, integrate that with our New World system just to really make us more efficient as a city and be able to talk to each other through this system. Initially, we thought we were going to be able to use an off-the-shelf program. After a lot of back and forth, after a lot of presentations, we've realized that we need a customized program to be able to make this work. We've looked at some of the programs that other municipalities have. Those municipalities all have customized programs. It makes sense for us to move forward in that way. So we are going to need added dollars to be able to better meet our needs as a city with that program. So that's what that is. The next one is pretty much an in and out. This is one that we have every year, a county grant. EMS really determines how to best use these dollars, so they will let us know how we use those, but that is just one that we have every year. So there's really nothing new on that one. The third one, this is a pretty big one. This is the Emergency Operations Center. As you know, last fiscal year, I think it might have bled over into this fiscal year possibly, the city did acquire 9 acres adjacent to City Hall. And those 9 acres will be used for our Emergency Operations Center and our fire training facility. The $3 million that you see here from budgeted for fiscal year '23, primarily a lot of those dollars came from the general fund that were moved into the 301 fund. Those dollars, you know that, just as a reminder, you know that we have to be at 25%. We were well above the 25% of expenditures in the fund balance, so we moved some of those dollars. That really gave the ability for us to be able to acquire that land. So going into fiscal year '24, we have $750,000 for engineering and design, and then also in fiscal year '25, the $4.2 million. Another thing that we are looking at as part of this, we are actually looking at the City Hall complex as a whole. I think many of you know that we are busting at the seams in this building, and Passports has grown to a point where we usually have to open up the chambers to allow for overflow seating, and that's on a daily basis at this point. Our departments have grown to the point where we need some additional space, so I think we're going to look at it comprehensively. Since we're doing this building, we're also going to look at that, but we can talk about that later. So that's the Emergency Operations Center. The next one is our Safe Streets for All. The city received a $150,000 grant to develop a safety action plan, and we're using those dollars to develop that plan so that we then become eligible for implementation dollars. You have to have a plan in place to be able to get the implementation dollars. So we're going to go through the process. We are going to use the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council to develop that plan for us, and then hopefully we'll be eligible for dollars for things like complete streets, things like that, and directly apply for those dollars. The city's contribution towards that is the $50,000. The federal grant is $150,000. Next slide is the summary. So when you look at the summary, you can see in fiscal year '23, the interfund transfer from the general fund, the $3.5 million, that was what I mentioned. We used those dollars to purchase the land for the Emergency Operations Center, and then we also did the interfund transfer. As part of the American Rescue Plan, the city received $20 million in American Rescue Plan dollars. As part of that, there was a certain portion that was allowed to be revenue replacement, to be used as revenue replacement. So we moved the portion that was the allowable portion to be able to use it for things that, the Emergency Operations Center still meets the criteria for use of American Rescue Plan dollars, but we moved those dollars. So that's what you're seeing, the moving of some of those dollars in here. Under the revenue side. So when you look at the fund balance at the bottom, it's the $7.8 million at the beginning fund balance. The difference between the revenue and an expenditure for fiscal year '24, the difference is $952,000, leaving $6.9 million in the new growth fund balance. Any questions?
Not so much a question, it's more something I would like to see. This is something that I brought up before. I would love to see these meetings be broadcast, not just audio recorded, but people are able to see them live. I understand that there is a cost, but I've heard from a lot of the residents that they can't believe that we're not live streaming these meetings, especially when all the other municipalities around us are doing it. So it's something that I would like for at least to bring back up to have the council consider.
Okay. All righty. Got it. Next one is the 303 Fund, Parks and Recreation. In the 303 Fund, the first one, 303032, that one is really for ongoing repairs and upkeep of the city's public parks. You will see that actually in fiscal year '23, there was some replacement of a play structure that came out of this fund. In fiscal year '24, primarily a lot of what we're using the funds for is the irrigation system here at the municipal complex and Freedom Park South irrigation. Those will both be replaced. So, but most of this is regular repairs and upkeep of the city's parks. And then you will see actually the matrix that goes behind it with that. So those pages are just the matrix. The next one is 303048, which is the Parks Court resurfacing. There is $50,000 in there, and that is actually based on the matrix. It is resurfacing of Samuel J. Ferrari tennis courts and also Gladiator basketball court, the first court. So that's what we're using for fiscal year '24. The next one is 303186. That is $10,000 just in case we need for replacement and/or enhancement of landscaping at our public buildings. Okay. Next is park lighting enhancements. That one we have $150,000 budgeted. $36,000 is actually coming from an energy grant. And we will be installing solar power LED lights on the pathways at Arbor Park. That's the park that has been constructed adjacent to City Hall. And then lights will also be installed, LED lights at the basketball courts. So we are looking to, whenever possible, move to solar lighting, LED lighting, more energy efficient lighting. So we're looking, as part of moving into our 100th anniversary, that is one of the things that we are going to be looking at in a lot of different areas of the city where we can become more green and reduce our dependence on some of those utilities. So next is the community center remodeling for fiscal year '24. We are looking at replacing the manual basketball backboards with motorized units. They're at a point where they just need to be replaced. So that is in there at $60,000. So when you look again, the last page here, this is the expenditure and revenue detail. When you're looking at the revenue, again, you don't see any impact fees in there just yet because we don't have that detail yet. I would imagine that that's going to change once we have that detail in there and we can bring that back and go over those numbers again with the council. Beginning fund balance is $637,000. The net change is the $396,000, leaving an ending fund balance of $241,000. That's it for that. Any questions? Okay. Moving on to the 304 fund. The 304 fund is where most of our maintenance costs come from at the city. It is our largest fund. It is the fund that we are watching the most because we do have to transfer dollars from the general fund into the 304 fund to be able to handle a lot of the maintenance. So, most of the fees that are there, we have a lot of tower fees coming in, but this one is one where, looking out years, we're just going to need to make sure that we're managing that fund and trying to figure out how we keep that fund healthy as we can. So 304049, we have $24,000 in there. That is just to replace equipment. All of the equipment being replaced is Public Works Department equipment. And behind that slide is the equipment that's listed. And you can see going out years what we're looking at replacement in the out years as well. Okay. Next slide. Copier replacement. This is one that we talk about every year, lease versus purchase. Does it make sense to lease? Does it make sense to purchase? We have gone back and forth with it. I've had lots of discussions with our director of purchasing. At this point right now, no, it is not beneficial for us to lease. We do lease our city computers. That is a lease that we've entered into. You will see that we're looking at potentially leasing other things that will come later on in this presentation, but this is just one now, just based on the cost, based on how long we keep them. Based on our usage, it doesn't make sense at this point to lease them. So the matrix you will see for this as well, we have $44,000 in fiscal year '24, and you will see the matrix has that we're doing development and neighborhood services, public works, and community and recreation services. The next item, 304073, this is one that we have used primarily for security cameras. There's $12,000 in there. The JAG grant is one that we apply for every year, and we work with PBSO on that one, on the security cameras. Next is vehicle replacement. For vehicle replacement, we have $40,000 in there. That is actually a vehicle replacement for our community and recreation services. That is actually going to be an e-vehicle. That will be one of the first vehicles that we look at, and we are actually using grant dollars to purchase that vehicle. So the cost of that vehicle will be with grant dollars. The reason that we want to be able to get this vehicle for community and recreation services is that our custodial staff is sharing a vehicle with our with our administrative staff. And just based on the amount of need in our buildings from the custodial side, they need to have their own vehicle. So we need to make sure that we break that out. And again, that vehicle is being purchased with e-grant dollars. Also, you'll see on page 30 of the presentation, there are 2 vehicles listed there. We have those in the 305 fund. I'll talk about those more a little bit when we get to the 305 fund, the 2 fire rescue vehicles. This is a big one for fiscal year 24, 304-150. Based on the matrix, we have $845,000 in the budget for replacement. Looking at the matrix, we have the community center roof, which is slated to be done. That roof is from 1999, so we're over 20 years on that roof. The life of that roof has exceeded probably our expectations at this point, and we can't hold out any longer on that. So we have that one for the community center. We also have the pavilions at Freedom Park that need to be replaced, and we have the flat portions of the municipal complex, the deck. So we have that as well. Public Works, 304-151, the exterior-interior painting for $22,000. Based on the matrix, that is for Fire Rescue 94, interior painting, and then we also keep miscellaneous $10,000 in there in case we need. 304-152. This one is for maintenance of our storm sewer drains, and it includes video inspections and minor repairs. This is one that we pretty much keep at the $30,000 every year in case we need. We do a lot of work in advance of hurricane season. Having the video inspections really allows us to make repairs before they get worse, so it's been very helpful for us to be able to maintain our systems. Roadway resurfacing, for budget year 24, we have $145,000 in for budget year 24, and that is going to include, based on the matrix, Constitution Way, Nautica Isles Boulevard, Piney Court, and Woodwind Court. And you can see where the maintenance, where the matrix is with that. Next one is 304-163 at $148,000. This is replacing air conditioning units at our buildings. The former City Hall building, we have units being replaced there, units being replaced at the gun range, at Station 94, and at 301 Swain.
Did you say the gun range?
The gun range, yes.
What's happening with
Yes,
the gun range?
the gun range is, PBSO uses the gun range, but then they also have offices within the gun range as well, I think for their sergeants, yeah, their street team. So, yes.
You can invite me if you want.
304-215. This is one where prior to fiscal year 23, the city was not budgeting for equipment replacement for fire rescue. We had found that we had a lot of outdated equipment, and we felt that it was appropriate, just in a lot of conversations with our fire chief, that it was appropriate to create a matrix as well for fire rescue, just like we have for the other departments and replacement of equipment. So for fiscal year 24, we have $110,000 in there, and that is for the items listed on the matrix that is attached. As you can see, this is ensuring that we're replacing equipment timely. You know, a lot of this equipment is not something where you can just let it go for 20 years. There is a life shelf for a lot of this equipment. So we wanted to do a better job of ensuring that they are using equipment that is up to date and will provide for their safety and those that they're serving. The next page is our balance in our 304 fund. Again, you will see that in fiscal year 24, we are looking at an interfund transfer of $650,000 to cover the cost of projects. We do have $1.4 million in expenses. When you look at the beginning fund balance, it's $711,000. The net change is $213,000 to the negative. expenses over revenues, which leaves our ending fund balance at 498,000. 400, the ending fund balance, 498,000. We do have to back out the local option gas tax, which is 568,000, because as you know, that can only be used for roads and bridges and that type of infrastructure. We can't use that for other things. So as of right now, our unrestricted fund balance is at a minus, and it's at 70,000 at a minus. So we are continuing to look at that one. I know our Director of Public Works is looking at some of the projects to see if there's potentially any savings that can be realized. He is actually looking at the third quote for the roof replacement at the community center, but right now, just with the costs that are coming in, we're just not seeing that. So it is something that we're monitoring. I don't want the council to get too worried about it. Us as staff, we're looking at it, and we're looking to see what we can do to be able to make some improvements in the 304 fund. 305 fund. That is the 1 penny surtax. If you remember back in, I think, 2018, 17, 18, the residents of Palm Beach County voted to approve a 1 penny surtax. Half of that penny went to the school district, a quarter went to the county, and a quarter was divided amongst the municipalities. The city of Green Acres received $23 million of that 1 penny. We are anticipating that next year that is going to sunset. So it was either for 10 years or $23 million, whichever came first. The city did a lot of quality of life projects with that money, pretty much replaced all of the play structures within our parks. And there was a lot that was done. So at some point, we can put together a presentation as to all those projects that we did related to the 305 fund and the use of surtax dollars. So the first one, 305032 for fiscal year 24, the play structure at Gladiator Park will be replaced with the rubberized surface. And that pretty much takes care of all of our play structures in the city looking out through 2029. All of our play structures have been replaced. And if you've had an opportunity to go to some of our parks, Freedom Park, Community Park, our play structures are amazing. I mean, they did a heck of a job with that. So kudos. Heavily utilized, absolutely 100%. I would put our play structures up against anybody. They're that good. And really the credit goes to our public works staff for all that they did to bring all of that to fruition. So that's the first one. The next one, vehicle replacement. This is the one that's the two that were from the 304 fund that we moved to the 305 fund. This is replacing the ladder truck at $1.8 million and the rescue at $500,000. One of the things that we're looking at, we're finding that there are municipalities that do lease their emergency vehicles. So we will be meeting specifically, I believe Palm Beach Gardens does, and they have been leasing for a period of time. So we are going to be meeting with their team up there to see how they go about leasing. We know that this is going to be something that we're always going to need, just like we know that we need computers, and that's not going to be something that is ever going to become obsolete for us. So for us, if it means that we can better manage the budget and have dollars, maybe smaller amounts of dollars every year to manage it, rather than $2.3 million in 1 year, it's probably a better way to manage it. So that's what we're looking to do. Either way, we're going to move forward with the vehicles, but we're looking at some options, and leasing is potentially one of those options. Next is 305169. It is currently the city has currently four city facilities prioritize the use of 2 trailers for generators. So this generator will allow for us to be able to add another one to our inventory in the event of a situation where we may need it. So at $175,000, we have that in for fiscal year 24. Next is our septic to sewer north project. The city has budgeted to provide the first phase of construction, which includes the north and south section of gravity sewer pipes for the project and multiple lift stations that will eventually serve the entire original section. So what you're seeing here is that phase where we're putting in the lift stations and we're putting in the infrastructure associated with the lift stations. We've been working with Palm Beach County on that. And having discussions with their water utilities. There have been a lot of things that have been required from Palm Beach County We are having some meetings with Palm Beach County regarding budgeted dollars that they had. I don't know where that's going to go, but we do have a meeting scheduled for the end of this month to see if there's an opportunity for us to benefit from some of the dollars that they had available related to this project, understanding that this is going to be a perpetual revenue source for Palm Beach County when this is online. So when you're looking at fiscal year '24, there was nothing, the carryover from fiscal year '23 of the $1 million, excuse me, that carryover will carry over to fiscal year '24. So we're looking at $1.1 million for fiscal year '24, the city at $552,000, and CDBG dollars of $567,000. The next project, I'll be very honest with you, I don't know where we're going to go with this project. This is Gladiator Lake. Gladiator Lake was a project that our Director of Public Works applied for through the HMGP process, and it was actually ranked #1 in Palm Beach County when they did their ranking of eligible projects. But the issue was that the project was funded at the $1.3 million, $1.3 million coming from the federal government, $500,000 from the city. When we put this out to bid, it came back at $2.3 million. And it is a project that is a necessary project. Our Director of Public Works has been in communication with the funder, and we're hoping that maybe there will be dollars available that we will be able to add to it from that. But at this point right now, we don't really have a timeline or a plan. We're just carrying it over until we know kind of where we are and what available dollars there might be for us to proceed with it.
Is there any liability with that lake?
There is no liability. The bank stabilization needs to happen, but at this point right now, there's no liabilities associated with it, no. Septic to sewer south. What this is really the laying of the piping for the actual septic to sewer. So this is putting the infrastructure in to serve the 86 homes along Swain Boulevard going from Lake Worth Road to about 300 feet south of 10th Avenue North. Those first few houses right from 10th Avenue North along Swain Boulevard, when 10th Avenue North got sewer, they connected as well, so those first few houses are already on sewer. But what we have in fiscal year, going into fiscal year '24, we have the carryover. We have not started this project, so we have the $1.89 million. We have a $600,000 that we have in the state budget, as Senator Powell mentioned, and then we have the $1.5 million from the city.
What's the status with the community center? What's the sewer status? Community center, they're hooked up to sewage, I assume. Community center.
Yeah, the community center is on sewer, correct? I don't know if that's correct. There's a lift station. There is a lift station, that's correct.
Thank you.
And actually, that first phase of the work that we're meeting with the residents about tomorrow is with respect to the lift station that's currently there and some of the work that's going to start to be able to kind of lay the foundation before we move into the next phase. Okay, so when we're looking at the detail page, the revenue and expenditure detail, again, when you look at the infrastructure surtax under the revenue, you see the $3.2 million, $3.9 million, $3.9 million. Again, when this was initially done, they assumed that it was going to be $2.3 million a year, just based on sales tax revenue and where that was. That's why you're seeing these large numbers. We're anticipating that we'll probably get $4.2 million in fiscal year '24, and we're anticipating that it'll probably sunset the program. We haven't heard that there has been any interest in extending the program. We would love to be able to have it extended, but I think that it's just, there's a lot of other things on the docket right now, so I don't know that this is going to be revisited.
Is that the penny sales tax?
This is the 1 penny, correct.
What I keep hearing is that it may face into transportation.
And that's kind of what we've heard as well. Understanding that the housing, the $200 million housing bond, there was also the water quality, and then there was also the need for the transportation as well. So that was what I had heard as well. So when you're looking at the summary, the beginning fund balance is the $5.3 million. The net change of $1 million, we're looking at an ending fund balance of $4.299 million. The next one is the American Rescue Plan dollars. This is the $20 million allocation, as I said earlier, that the city received over a 2-year period. The first project associated with that is the Youth Programs Building. This is one that is 95%, engineering and design is 95% complete at this point. So we will be ready to go out for bid very, very soon on this project. When you look, we have $7.6 million budgeted. Again, that's the carryover from fiscal year '23 to '24. We did not get started sooner on that. When you look at the House Community Project under fiscal year '23, that was the initial request Congresswoman Frankel included in the budget of $2 million. Ultimately, the city received $1 million of that, but that's what the initial request was. So in looking at fiscal year '24, the city has $1.8 million in the state budget. Fingers crossed that we will get that $950,000. The governor will sign the budget. And then we have the $1 million for the House Community Project and the American Rescue Plan dollars of the 3.8 at 7.86 million total. The next is Fire Station 96. This is also one where we have not started the process on it, so we're moving the dollars over to fiscal year '24. We are looking at site acquisition for a few different sites and determining the most viable of those sites. So we're anticipating for fiscal year '24, should there be a need for land acquisition, we have dollars allocated for that, but then we also have dollars allocated for the planning and design as well. And then in fiscal year '25, we would have the construction for the project. So looking at the balance of the 306 fund, when you look at the beginning balance of $8.2 million, the net change of 1.2, we have an ending fund balance of $6.9 million. And just so I think that we understand how the American Rescue Plan, and our Director of Finance can correct me if I'm wrong, but those dollars that we have received are not all reflected in here at this point. We do have investments, and those dollars are being invested in other areas. Once we have projects to budget, we will move dollars into it, so this isn't all the money that we have. There are other funds available, but we're benefiting from investments right now, and actually we're doing pretty well with interest right now as well. So. The next slide, proposed positions. As you're going to see on this list, there's 14 positions proposed for fiscal year '24. That is probably the most that you've seen since I've been here since 2016. We are at a point where we have grown, and in order for us to keep up with the things that we're doing as a city, we're going to need to look at positions. There's just no way around it. I mean, it is what it is. We have employees that are doing more with less every day, and I can't continue to ask them to do more with less considering the workload that we have. So we needed to look at these positions. These aren't positions that are wants, and we've went through this during the budget meetings that the Director of Finance and I had with the departments. These are needs, not wants. So in going through the positions, in looking at, yes.
I like my usual annual concern. What you're doing is you're adding fixed costs.
Yep.
And so you have to balance that with your fixed income.
Yep.
If that changes, then you get into doo-doo trouble.
Yep.
So from what we can see, our revenues are moving along at a percentage greater than our expenditure.
Yeah, I have a slide showing that. We have a slide in the back showing that as well. Yep. So the first one is a human resource. Go ahead. Yep. The first position is a human resources assistant position. We are at a point where, just based on kind of the market and where we are and what hiring looks like today, we are spending a lot more time on recruitment and onboarding and retention. They are spending a lot of time focusing on things that they should not be focusing on, which the assistant position will allow them to be able to focus on higher level things, or the recruitment pieces, the retention pieces, the policy review. A couple of years ago, I think it might have been last year, the council approved an update to our personnel policies. I don't think the policies had been updated. It was probably 20 years before that they hadn't been updated. We are updating our policies annually at this point, so there is a lot more workload that is coming into that department, and looking at it, really the need for a human resources assistant is one that we just need. The city clerk, under the city clerk, we're looking at a city receptionist position. We went back and forth on where that position should be housed and what department makes the most sense. Currently, our cashier, who also does accounts payable work, is technically the receptionist for the city. There is so much that she is doing that she really doesn't have the time to focus on the reception activities. The reason that we're putting this under the city clerk is because based on the traffic, based on what all the questions that we get and the amount of traffic related to passports, this can allow that position to really manage a lot of that and then allow the staff to be able to process passports and not have to answer a lot of the questions. So that's why we were looking at that position. Additionally, we don't really have a backup. If my assistant, your assistant is out, oftentimes the calls will either go to the director of communications or myself. We want to be able to have someone that these calls can go to so that they can route these calls to the appropriate department. So this position will act as not just an employee of the city clerk's office, but it will work for the entire city and provide support for the entire city from a reception perspective, because the position doesn't currently exist. The next position, I'm sorry, let me make sure that I have. The next position is our digital media coordinator. As you know, the public information position recently became the director of communications position. We are seeing that the number of city residents, social media follows, programming, all of these things continue to grow. Every Monday morning, I get a list of our subscribers. I would say probably over the last 2 months, I have not seen anybody unsubscribe to the City of Green Acres. This past Monday, there were 3. The last Monday, there were 4. So we're seeing that traffic is continuing to grow. There is only so much we're going to be able to do with communications, whether they are mailers, whether they are digital communications, assistance to the departments, all of those different things. There is only so much we're going to be able to do with one employee. And it's just, if we want to get to that next point from a media perspective, whether it's social media, whether it's, hard media, all of those things, we're going to need to look at the position to be able to be really effective. So we've included that position. The next position is a part-time position. It is an accounts payable tech part-time position. We have found that with the change in fire inspection billings and that process, the finance department has seen a phenomenal increase in the number of fire inspection invoicing. That means more revenue to the city, which is a plus. But we're finding that we just don't have the ability to manage all of that need at this point. So we're looking at moving and creating a part-time accounting clerk. One of the things that we're looking with this position, we've had an opportunity to really learn about the Finance Academy at John I. Leonard. We'd like to be able to partner with John I. Leonard if possible to be able to use this position to help with their students in the Finance Academy, because a lot of those students, they're done by 1 o'clock in the afternoon or done at noon their senior years. This gives them practical work experience where they can do work for the city and be able to satisfy that need for the city. So we're looking at this as an opportunity to be able to have that partnership, but then also to satisfy the need within our finance department. Next, we have information technology. Again, just based on, all of the things related to cybersecurity and, management of our software, our EnerGov program. I will tell you that the EnerGov system that we talked about earlier in the 301 fund that we're going to use in our building department and other applicable departments, most cities have just an EnerGov employee because it is that detailed and the requirements of that technical software are so great that the need is for that. So in looking at where we are now, the application specialist will really manage a lot of the software applications, including implementation, coordination of training, and also document and managing security access for all of our software applications. The administrative assistant within information technology, right now the director of that department is doing all of his own admin work. It really is pulling him from a lot of the projects that need to be done, and he is spread thin to the point where there comes a point where you're not efficient in your job because you are doing work that doesn't allow you to focus really on the crux of what the responsibility is of your position. So that's the need for the administrative assistant. Public Works Inspector. During fiscal year '23, and just within some changes within the Department of Neighborhood Development and Neighborhood Services, we've identified various gaps in the permitting, planning, and construction services within public right-of-ways. When we get applications for a driveway or we get applications for anything that impacts the city's right-of-way, it is the responsibility of our Public Works Department to be able to manage that, because our building department can't really manage and determine whether or not it's okay for that work and what impact does it have on the public right-of-way. So based on that, we're looking at a Public Works inspector position that will manage that, and then in addition to that, we'll also manage approval and field compliance inspections for the maintenance of uniform traffic plans, and review and inspection construction plans for NPDES permit compliance, and performing monthly illicit discharge inspections within easements and alleyways. So that is that position. The fire rescue firefighter paramedic. The reason behind adding these positions are that, and I'm sure you've had conversations or conversations have been had with you moving towards 3 on a truck. And the importance and what that means to be able to have the 3 on a truck. This is moving us in that direction. It will also allow for a reduction in overtime based on the additional staffing. So that is the reason for that. The last one, community and recreation services. This is the positions associated with this department. When we were looking at events for the city, we have one person that handles events for the city. And we have some large events, and just 4th of July, the extravaganza, Holiday in the Park are huge events, and one person is managing those events. Really, the position, the events coordinator position should really be one that's going out and looking for dollars, and they have done an amazing job in getting dollars, sponsorship dollars for the city, but they can't manage these events and then also go out and try and develop these relationships that provide sponsorship dollars for our events. So we're looking at an events assistant. I'll go back to the community services coordinator, but we're looking at an events assistant to support the events coordinator position. The community services coordinator position, our events coordinator position is also managing our senior programming and is managing all of our community events. If we want to be able to provide certain community services, things like that, we can't have that one position manage it, because there comes a point where we're going to start outputting shoddy work in some area, whether it's in the areas of our events or it's the areas of our programming. So we're looking at a community services coordinator. The director of community services and I had a call this afternoon with Palm Beach County, and it was actually a very good call. There's a lot of partnership opportunity for us. They will actually give us access to their systems from a community services perspective, allow us to use the systems to be able to go in and apply for dollars in their systems for residents that have a need. So we just felt that it was something that we're seeing the need. There's the opportunity to be able to create the position specifically for our senior services. Then the next is our custodian, a part-time custodian. As we continue to bring these buildings on board, as we continue to utilize the buildings that we do, we just have the need for part-time custodial, and oftentimes it's really for coverage issues. It's very difficult for custodial to take off at certain times, and it really just kind of fills the gaps. Additionally, the parks attendant. We have 2 parks attendants, and the number of parks that we have, having a part-time position will really be able to fill a lot of the gaps that we have some need on. So those are the positions.
Can I interrupt and
Yes.
ask questions? Do you want me?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So when I was looking at the proposed positions, so my mind kind of ran away with me. Number one, I was looking to see if we were hiring anyone for the passport office, which is always crazy and busy, and you didn't have anyone there.
No.
And I was looking at the accounts payable position for finance. And so my mind started running, and I don't want anyone to get upset with me, but years ago, that position, as well as I'm sure you have a full-time person that does the fire inspections, the collections, the billing for it, and this person would also, in finance, help with that. So what I was thinking, and years ago, everybody got in an uproar over this, but if you remember what we did with the garbage cost, and the garbage fee is on our tax bill. If we did a fire assessment, even for like $20, the fire inspection fee could come out of that, so you would save the billing, the individual billing. and you would probably be able to fund many things with that. I was just suggesting that because there's got to be 2 positions there that you're utilizing for the billing of the fire inspections or whatever. And a fire assessment would be added to the bill, so you wouldn't be doing that, and it would pay for the fire inspections and items like that, and you would have an individual that you probably already have doing something else, and maybe a part-time person helping in Passport. And that was just, just my mind was running away with the positions.
Well, and
Just an
that was
idea.
something that the council did consider, I want to say, back in 2016, 2017, implementing a fire service fee. I think it was residential. It was based on $25 per residential unit. And then I want to say it was based on square footage, a dollar amount times the number of square footage for the commercial side. I don't remember all of it exactly, but.
I don't, and I was the one that
I think the only thing that we would need direction on is if the council has any interest in reconsidering a fire assessment fee. I think really the goal of a fire assessment fee is to offset the general fund costs
Which is-
associated with operating the department.
which would be
So-
wonderful.
Right,
for
so
the
if
general fund.
there is any consideration with looking at a fire assessment fee, then that really should be, it's hopefully relieving the general fund of some of those dollars. Additionally, the fire assessment fee, when that, or the work associated with establishing a fire assessment fee, that was done, I believe, back in 2016, the shelf life for that was only 5 years. So we are outside of that 5-year window. We would have to go forward and look at that again. I will tell you that, just, for your information, we service the city of Atlantis. Atlantis is currently going through the process. Their residents support a fire service fee or a fire assessment to support us providing fire service to Atlantis. I have no idea if the data is all of our data because we provide the service to Atlantis. So I don't know if there's a possibility to use that data to develop a plan. I would imagine there will still be a cost to the city, that it just won't be that data alone because that data is really specific for the most part to Atlantis. There is some other larger data that is just Green Acres, Green Acres data. But that would be something that the council would need to provide direction on to us if there's any consideration or interest in that.
And I remember when I proposed the fire assessment, I didn't have specific use, like put it in the general fund, but I would just.
Yeah, I think
I'm
when,
just
again, when you're
suggesting-
looking at it, it really should be something that's providing relief to the general fund. And I
Yes.
think back in 2016, I want to say maybe 3 million, maybe $2-3 million is what this fire assessment fee
Right.
was going to generate based on the residential commercial. It would be my hope that if we're looking at that, it's not to augment what we have at fire rescue, but as a replacement for
the general
dollars that
fund.
that are coming out of the general fund.
Right, because we are using general fund here for items that we normally wouldn't have used.
Correct.
I just would like to, I don't know how the rest of the council feels. It just when you were doing the proposed positions, my mind was working, maybe to the detriment, I'm not sure.
I think from our perspective, from a staff perspective, if the mayor, if we can always add it to an agenda for a discussion item, because I think it probably needs to be something that would be a larger discussion, whether or not the city wants to move forward with that.
So what, you would like consensus?
Yes, would like consensus if that's the case. If there is an interest from the council to do it, then I would say it probably should start as a discussion item with the full council.
I definitely would like it, I'm requesting.
No,
Deputy Mayor,
All for a discussion.
Okay?
there you go.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions on the positions? No? Okay.
No passport person?
Oh, well, the only reason that we're not looking, I'll be very honest with you, logistically, we don't have a place to
we
put
don't
them.
have a room.
We don't have a place to put them. The city clerk and I have had a lot of discussion about what the opportunity is, what the potential is. We're looking at potentially, I think, forecasting somewhere around $800,000 in revenue for passports for fiscal year '23. So we know that there is a need. It's just logistically, we don't have anywhere to put the bodies at this point. Wow. We don't.
Thank you, Quinn, for all that hard work in your department.
But we are working on
All
it.
of you.
We're working on it as best as we can.
Thank you.
So I do think, though, the city clerk is working with our director of IT and looking at a queuing system. I think the queuing system is going to relieve a lot of the traffic that you see. People will come in, they'll get notifications on their phone. They will not have to just sit around and wait. So we're hoping that that will actually provide some benefit and reduce some of the traffic as well.
Wonderful.
So we're looking at that. Okay, the next slide is just a slide that we always include, the law enforcement services. We did receive notification from the sheriff of a 3% increase for fiscal year ~24 over fiscal year '23. That increase equates to $286,000 at a total of $11,057,893 for our law enforcement services agreement with the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office. The next slide also, it just really is just a little bit more detailed. As you're all aware, the agreement is effective on February 1st of each year. So we have the old cost or the old revenue coming in or the old expense at the prior year rate, and then the new rate, that new 3% rate, would come in effective February the 1st. So the next slide is just really the CIP project summary. I think that in looking at out years, just looking at where we are and what we're looking at as projects for out years, I'm not going to go into all the detail. We went through all of these in detail as I went through each one of the funds, but this just gives you a full synopsis of the total program. Our ad valorem. The director of finance and I, and our city clerk actually, went to the city manager's meeting last Friday. And we are pleased to report that it looks like property values for the city of Green Acres are coming in at 13% over the prior year. So that's what it looks like going into fiscal year '24. For fiscal year '23, we are at the $15,367,846. Fiscal year '24, it is projected at 96% collection rate, because realistically, 100% collection rate probably will not happen. But at a 96% collection rate, we're at $17,420,035 for the ad valorem.
So what does that mean? What total will we get versus what we were getting the year before?
That's what, this is the ad valorem from last year for this current fiscal year, 15.3. And then, correct, going into fiscal year '24, we're looking at an ad valorem of $17.4 million.
Those numbers are the 96%.
Yes, those are the numbers. Correct.
Nice.
So for fiscal year '23, the forecast, when we're looking, and this is our current fiscal year, you will see the amended budget and then the year-to-date actuals and the forecast. What we're looking at, I know that, don't get nervous by the minus $9 million that you're seeing. That really has to do with the American Rescue Plan money and transfers out of the American Rescue Plan money. So don't get nervous that we're at a minus of $9 million. But if you look at, and I think the best way to show this picture is the amended budget or the budget for fiscal year '23, we had revenue at $36 million. We are currently forecasting revenue to come in at $38.9 million with a net of $2.3 million in additional revenue for fiscal year '23. And if you look at the expenses, the expenditure line, we had $49.8 million budgeted in expenditures. We are currently forecasting end of the year at $48.8 million, leaving us at $1 million to the good on our expenses as well. So that's really where we are from the forecast. Of course, that could change as we get closer to the end of the current fiscal year, but that's what we're projecting at this point.
Congratulations.
So
Great job.
that's where we are.
Great.
All right, I'd like to bring something up.
Yep.
One of the things that I've seen in the city happening is pickleball is becoming like a big thing. I've gone to those courts and it's packed. I can't believe it. I never thought pickleball would be
It's huge.
huge.
It's worldwide catching on.
Yep,
Yeah.
huge.
Everywhere.
So with that being said, I think there might be a place that we can capitalize based on the usage that I see. Wellington has a tennis center, and they charge people to come and use their courts. Some of the residents have brought up to me and even sent me videos of an indoor, it's not indoor, it's a roof facility. So it's not indoors, there's no AC or anything like that. But maybe we can monetize that and have that be a revenue generating opportunity for us. So I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what Wellington, what their numbers are. I know I've spoken to some of their council members. They love the numbers that they have, but I don't have anything concrete. I just thought that this could be an opportunity. I know we have some facilities at Freedom Park, but we might be able to offer a convenience to our residents of providing a roof, but also charging a nominal fee for the usage of.
Did you say Wellington's is indoors? Wellington's is indoors. It is just roofed. It just has a roof.
So Wellington doesn't have a roof on anything. They just charge for their tennis courts.
As far as
just
I know,
charge.
they don't charge for pickleball.
Okay.
As far as I know.
So, but what I'm saying is there are some facilities in other parts of the state, and we might be able to create the first pickleball center in Palm Beach County, and we can monetize that. I mean,
Okay.
if people are willing to pay to have access to that, I mean, the same way that they play tennis. I mean, I go play tennis and I pay $15, $20 every time I go. People in the pickleball community might be inclined to do the same. I know some of them have
Yep, well,
offered.
we can look into
I'd
that.
like to make a couple of comments on that. As far as I know, no one is charging for pickleball. Wellington is converting more of their tennis courts to pickleball. And I don't know that my son plays pickleball. I have kids all over the country playing pickleball. No one's charging for pickleball. And it is really catching on. I'm not sure that you can monetize it, but you can certainly expand the courts. And Andrea and I have had conversations on this related to improvements there, but we actually haven't talked about expanding the courts. That could be something to think about.
What we'll do is we'll do some research. I believe Palm Beach Gardens has a very large facility as well, if I remember. I think, okay, Wellington, we'll do some research on our end, and yeah, we'll take a look, bring back, okay. Okay,
I mean, I just want to clarify, I'm not saying to take away the free pickleball. What I'm saying is, if we put a roof over it, we can monetize it because now people can play even exactly anytime, even during the rain, even during, hot periods in the summertime, which, you're not going to go out there at, in the 6 o'clock just because it's too hot, but we might be able to monetize and it could be an opportunity. All I'm saying is let's research this and see if it has
we'll
legs.
definitely research it. Okay.
Can I add to your statement? A while ago, several years ago, there was a facility that they were interested in building, and I think it was on 10th. It was a sports.
It was small-sided soccer,
Okay.
yeah.
If that area is available, we could, like you said, do pickleball, do the roof and create.
Yeah, no, we
Yeah.
will take a look and see what we have. Okay, we will take a look and report back on that. Okay, no problem. I don't know if there were any other questions related to where we were from the CIP, the budget. Just wanted to go into the calendar events, wasn't going to go into too much detail on this. We've had a lot of discussion about our events, and we want to be able to have flagship events. We want to be able to have 4th of July, the holiday in the park, the extravaganza, the artsy at City Hall. We're going to look to completely overhaul artsy at City Hall to probably make it more of an adult event with, hors d'oeuvres and things like that, and just be able to create something new there. So these are the projects that we are focusing on for fiscal year '24. The events that we're working through, so these are the ones that will be listed or included in the budget, and then also the city co-sponsored events, our Trunk or Treat, that is really something that's managed by PBSO. They do it at IVB. It was a very huge event last year, so anticipate that will only continue to grow. The city will actually be hosting the National Night Out Against Crime. I believe we are the only ones that are going to be hosting that for all of Palm Beach County. So PBSO did ask if the city would consider hosting it. So that is going to be a very large event as well on October the 20th at Community Park. And then we have the Fiesta de Pueblo and Rock and Roll Sunday with our chili cook-off slated as well for co-sponsored events. So those are the events that we currently have. I know that at times requests come in for, can we have an event at the park? Can we do certain things? understanding that there is a lot that goes into working these events. Sometimes we're not able to do it. If there is an opportunity for us to partner with someone or do something, and it's not just a flat-out rental of our facilities, then we look at that for the next fiscal year, and we tell them, and we prepare for that appropriately. So that's what we're looking at going into fiscal year '24.
Wow,
Any comments or questions from the council?
wow.
All right. All right, seeing none, moving on to comments from the public on non-agenda items. Anyone wishing to speak, please come forward, state your name and address for the record. Seeing none, city managers report. Anything else to
I have
add?
no additional report, no.
All right.
Only thing I will say is, our Director of Finance, our budget analysts, they put a lot of time and effort into the budget. Our departments did a fantastic job of entering their budgets. We're very grateful for that. We had great budget meetings with the departments. They understand where we are from a budgetary process. And, you know, we're very grateful for all their effort. But definitely our Director of Finance and our budget analysts, they do a heck of a job.
Thank you. Thank you to the staff. Any other comments from the council? No?
I'll just make a comment.
The Premier
City
Noble.
manager's done an excellent job of involving herself into this process, and the presentation today was excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew.
Overwhelmingly excellent.
All right, there's no city attorney tonight at this special meeting, so we're moving on to the mayor and city council's report. Is there any comments or additional further reports from the council, mayor? No, seeing none. All right, meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
Good night.